Welcome back to my channel, Star Booze.
I am aware opium similar to a Cheeto that you can't just own that could appear to be offhand statement is actually that of Melissa McCarthy. Summary of the ideal self that is eccentric, humorous, and unforgettable to audiences around the world. She is the dominant, the comedian who created the entire comedy. Laughter breaks out in theaters and The Bridesmaids left the critics in tears. Awarded an Emmy for Can You Ever Forgive? Proprietor of a fashion brand and an Oscar nominee, brand and empire, and a producing company that encourages women to escape her body shape stereotype. Show a few were aware of that prior to her becoming Melissa McCarthy in her current incarnations. Spent years living in obscurity. Working as a babysitter in order to make ends meet. Queen performances in New York nightclubs merely to remain beneath the shining star with the stage name Miss Yass, though she wasn't prepared to reveal who she was. Neither ideal nor conventionally beautiful. Figure without a strong support system. Melissa came to Hollywood armed just with an outdated bag and a hazy hope that if she might be able to make others laugh, be permitted to remain, and from that exact minute she entered the stage in heavy cosmetics and footwear that didn't quite suit. An unorthodox icon started to take form, not via beauty, but by a burning desire and guts of irreverent Sato be viewed, even if just once. The narrative what you are going to hear isn't only about the key to becoming a star is survival of a lady who rejected standing on the sidelines were not demarcated, and finally transformed her disagreements into I'm from a light that no one could dim. I am standing in Plainville, Illinois. Here, and it's rather wonderful early feeling uncomfortable in her own hometown before turning into a representation of unorthodox ladies who declined to be Melissa McCarthy was a young child with a strong sense of not being accepted even before she went in the tiny community where she was born. She grew up on August 26, 1970. Ena, peaceful town in the Midwest is Plainfield, Illinois, Midwest America, where life went on schedules for planting and conservative Michael McCarthy. Her father was her mother is an Irish farmer. Sandra McCarthy was employed in the medical field. Kind, loyal woman with a high anticipation's youngest child. Melissa had an older sister who was brought up under a rigorous Catholicism as a place of order. More important than uniqueness and silence was frequently prized more than. Melissa never remained silent despite the laughter. She was the kid who had the ability to change a myth, inverted by imitating her voice of a grandmother or feigning in the center of the living room, feigned simply to observe her mother's response. She overacted, spoke quickly, and laughed loudly, as though practicing the initial job of her life, and that dinner was central to it. Table where she received her first instruction. If it were possible to make someone laugh, Yowell to draw attention while her well-known cousin Jenny McCarthy was headed towards. Melissa made the decision to become a Playboy icon. The other path is not obedient or sexy. Refusing to compromise. She wasn't attractive by Hollywood norms, and she made no attempt, although she didn't dress. She used to enjoy fashion. She enjoyed coming up with fresh ideas, even whether it was from a ripped magazine or a piece of cloth with her favorite childhood Brian Atwood, a friend who would eventuate her into a well-known shoe designer. Melissa ripped up Vogue magazines for hours. Making notes in a notebook in Paris. A runway show was being held. Her unbridled inventiveness resulted in study fashion design at Southern Illinois University. But as soon as Shelator acknowledged that everything felt restricting her since she didn't belong in fun community, thus she left it. There was no specific plan in place at the time. Destination. A single thought goes a long way. Be oneself in her early drag queen career. 2. Being removed from positions for dressing over the top following their departure from Melissa McCarthy. Left school to relocate to New York is carrying just 3 items. A portable sewing machine and an old luggagey matchin', and the straightforward conviction that if at that time she caused someone to laugh, perhaps she could make it through. But New York wasn't a location for flimsy dreams that she embroidered while working as a babysitter by day. A little dance troupe's closed at night, and lived in such close quarters that there at times she was unable to withdraw funds. Her balance from the ATM was less than $5, less than the nightly minimum transaction. Curled up in an inexpensive room that was hired in the East, she embroidered in East Village and considered, if no one actually calls my name, she said, life, I'll at least get a clap when. Additionally, it was on Thuscally winter evenings that have an additional aspect. Ms. Y was born instead of Melissa. Flashy, wild drag queen who bursts on task scenario like a storm in a movie. She her own texts and sewn them herself, made her own makeup and outfits. Owned shows without a salary director or television doll with only a tiny space with limited lighting and support group from the LGBT community, and more cheers than she had ever received swiftly received. Miss Y in her life. Came well-known underground and knew she performed at the drag scene in York. Wigstock is a performance festival. Rejected by popular entertainment. Melissa didn't need to reduce her weight there to gain acceptance, nor did she require. She didn't have permission to stand out. No longer a relic of society, she was unrealistic artist with a genuine following. Killed New York, but failed to provide her with a route to drag queens, and the screen stayed marginalized. So in 1996, Melissa relocated to the metropolis of Los Angeles. Lights, as well as a location where Sumianesik as her was seldom accepted through the she joined the groundlings at the front door, well-known comic group that had started Will Ferrell and Kristen's careers. She discovered her genuine artistic calling their family and created a unique performing style. Boldness, absurdity, emotion, and unpredictable. She was also present on Encountered her most instant Ben Falcon performing partner before becoming her spouse and dependable friend. She had her first chance, Jenny McCarthy, a cousin when Melissa, a minor part in Jenny, but that role went by quickly. Little sections that came after in Go Charlie's Angels David Gale Kim's Life is Possible. But despite the fact that no one remembered her face, she consistently took actions that made her to forget, and occasionally being too dissimilar cost her the opportunity. She was expelled off the set of The Priest's Wife for dressing purposes on the Estantis for the role on another instance. A director turned her down for being too vivacious for a function. By the year 2000, Lakshmi was cast as chef when she eventually knocked the character Suki St. James from Gilmore Girls series that was really successful at the time, but the associated cost wasn't simple. She swallowed in order to appear on screen. Made to follow a diet of 500 calories each day. Her body deteriorated, her thoughts faltered, and Melissa started to comprehend even after. Despite getting selected, Hollywood attempted to transform her into the person she used to be, had audiences laughing with Miss Y, but she had to learn to laugh less on set. To accommodate the frame they desired to trap her in a career that breaks stereotypes, turning into a symbol from their chilly evenings in East Village, where she changed into Miss Y only to get Melissa a few brief moments of applause. McCarthy had made unthinkable progress. Manner, but nobody could have foreseen that her ridiculousness and that very look so unsuited to Hollywood would end up being her sharpest tool to break through any mold and turn the fame game upside down. 2010 saw a significant opportunity when she was cast as Molly Flynn in Mike and Molly from the show, playing A&A primary school instructor who was her embodied, intelligent, humorous, and made millions of people's hearts sing. Viewers in America who saw that part not only won, she won the Emmy for Best Lead. 2011 actress in a comedy series. Butte additionally ushered in a new era for ladies who had been excluded from the leading lady standard. However, there was another side behind the curtain. Melissa had to create and embroider her story. Own attire for the awards ceremony, as their enormous actress would be sponsored by the brand. She persisted in pushing the boundaries of both Beth herself and the viewers of Bridesmaids 2011 as Megan, the strange outlier but profoundly Melissa, my adorable sister-in-law, didn't simply make them laugh. She moved them. Paul, the director, had one improvised phrase. Fig had to stop laughing so hard while filming the role. She won an Oscar. Best Supporting Actress nomination along with BAFTA's commendations. SAG and MTV are the critics' choice. But more crucially, it signaled the moment Hollywood had to recognize a new type of the performer. It is not flawless, conventionally glitzy, but compiler Leah Fimply Leah Click then went into her box. Thief. The Heat is an office gold era identity, in contrast to Sandra Bullock, and particularly all of the 2015 spy films brought in above. $150 million. She also received a Golden Globe for Espionage nomination. Solidifying Melissa's position was more than simply a comedian. She was naturally a box office force that didn't air free of injuries. When she featured in Ghostbusters, an all-female film. Reboot in 2016, she encountered a significant wave of severe criticism for having the audacity to touch a flood of criticism for the film's legacy with reference to her gender and appearance and her part. But the movie still made money, $229 million, and Melissa was spared the need to say something in support of her accomplishment. They compose screenplays, make films, and raise Zit and Vivian, their two daughters, and discuss everything, including job choices. Ben is enamored with odd pastimes when riding a long distance by cycle foot and complete Lycra equipment on Verthus, a Pro Elite Originals at the summit. Melissa, meanwhile, is obsessed with gathering strangers' photographs, 80 paintings from flea shops that nobody wants to maintain, but she insists on bringing creating intricate backstories at home. Fourth name of each character is Dawn. She paints on the side while working at a bank. I can feel it, and I know it happens on weekends. Melissa states firmly that Ben Ripley's that she has possession of their house is frequently funnier than any theorist. Daughter's request to watch a movie meant in a pet fish that they traded in the dead and informed her that it was a new red one, transformed color as a result of magic. Melissa asked to be afraid of house geckos. Butte eventually began communicating with it every day. Although families aren't flawless, they might be just that flaw that makes them. Very persistent disputes and private crises where generosity is making humor a target. During the 20 Days of Kindness in 2020, she started a campaign with HBO Max to advertisement for the movie Superintelligence. McCarthy was heavily criticized following supporting Exodus Cry without realizing it. Group alleged to be anti-LGBTQ rights in opposition to abortion. Ironically, the initial objective of the campaign was merely to show compassion, but that she became defensive due to her intense intent. Rather than concealing herself, Melissa decided she filmed a public apology to tackle it. Acknowledged the error and promptly cancelled the gift. It was among the infrequent instances in Hollywood where a celebrity lowered their head in a sincere display of humility. No hiding, no assigning of responsibility, just responsibility. A year later, she attracted attention once more, paying close attention. During an interview with Douche disclosed to The Guardian that she had previously worked on a set so poisonous that my body responded as though I had a physical illness, she underlined. Without mentioning names, that manipulation of the mind and ether-contaminated air was what ultimately forced her to voice her opinions. Not only to defend herself, but to advocate for it. Wasn't the first time that people couldn't. Melissa eventually became one of the few voices that are willing to reveal the backstage facts that have frequently concealed Hollywood's glitzy exterior. Followed by her participation in the female Ghostbusters, was the subject of harsh internet assaults on the trailer. For the movie swiftly emerged as one of the most explicit videos in the history of YouTube. But rather than McCarthy glanced the other way as he backed down, backlash in the face, and said quite simply that was a highly dangerous substances reaction. Incredibly sexist, minority forceful but non-malignant sentence sufficient to convey the reality that every woman who eventually has the courage to break the mold faces. She's been criticized for her humorous approach, with some accusing her of making fun of her body, but in actuality, McCarthy has never concealed she has never used her body or herself. She performs with in order to elicit pity, complete assurance, and selects her characteristics that are not meant to please Melissa McCarthy's strict beauty requirements. Is strength the type of celebrity equivalent to with controversy? However, if you consider her life has not been shook, maybe you forget in everything, even the act of compassion, when misguided, might become the focal point of a storm in the life of a mother who, in private, takes artwork home after all the controversies and scandals. Melissa McCarthy refused to back down. Instead, she decided to live simply but fully and genuinely as herself. And that's precisely what makes it hard to turn away from. At the Golden Globes in January 2025, she attracted notice in a flamboyant pink outfit by Kate Thattenley. Took 15 minutes to get into the car. Not everyone has the courage to take such a risk, yet because she's never allowed to does anyone else write on her style in a world that humans frequently resorted to surgery to meet ephemeral norms. Melissa took a different route than she had previously. 75 pounds by following a diet and kickboxing, without medication or surgery due to pressure to look good, but for clarity and health. It was a quiet but strong assertion that true beauty starts with regard for herself. In May 2023, appeared on the big screen once more as Ursula, the live-action version of the fabled sea witch. Her performance in The Little Mermaid was hailed as perfect, even in its quiet, demonstrating her adaptability once more after more than 20 years before the camera. But McCarthy is not a fan afros by herself with Ben Falcone, her spouse. She remains the creative inspiration behind Nines on the Day Productions' God's Favorite Perfect Strangers 2021.2022, Idiot 2 on Frost 202 for Boo and Genie are scheduled for late 2025. This pair continues to cultivate fresh narratives not only on screen, but also in their offstage at home. Melissa McCarthy is a woman brimming with what can only be described as cute secrets she's kept since 2024 to amass portrait paintings of flea market strangers back then, bringing them home in stealth since her two girls and their husband maintained that they believe they should be haunted. She relates their tales as though each a forgotten soul is hidden behind a nameless face. With more than 40 paintings strewn about, McCarthy has made the house her home into a small exhibition of feelings, odd but subtly poetic in the nobody. In the McCarthy-Falcone household is quite typical, for their oldest daughter is really passionate about reptiles. LeFou, the lizard she owns, frightened Melissa at first. But now, as though via some subtle sorcery, Melissa is the person who comes to LeFou's room each day to talk like you've known each other for years. No show, no flash, simply the silence, the truth about a loving mother-wife who is adept at bending with affection and a creator who appreciates the beauty of little things in a society that is fixated on I'm looking for the ideal role model. McCarthy chooses to go the other way. The more flawed the person, the more significant is artwork featuring a small lizard in every day. The kitchen is lively with laughing. These could appear to be the most basic offices, but when combined, they create a woman's amazing life around the world. Just cannot disregard impact and legacy. Unconventional women can take the lead. Melissa McCarthy never made an effort to become the ideal of someone else, but because she never tried, she ultimately served as a beacon of light for an annual female generation that formerly judged unfit to pursue a career in Hollywood. She lacks the proportions of a conventionality, the enigmatic coolness, nor the sex symbol or a dramatic tale written specifically for publicity. But with skill and fortitude, Melissa left her mark on significant events. Few celebrities ever win 2 Emmys, a star on the Oscar nomination list, a place on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, the top 3 highest paid people in Forbes actresses worldwide, and a spot on, according to Time magazine, the 100 most prominent individuals worldwide in 2016. The New York Times named her one in 2020. Among the top 25 actors of the 21st century, placing her in 22nd place. above are numerous legends with multiple Oscars. But McCarthy doesn't only focus on numbers. More significantly, she leaves behindert how the whole industry opens on what it means to be a fit lady bee. Overcoming the box for the screen office that doesn't look like the normal. Melissa dispelled the idea that Anne the actress needed to be young, slender, and conventional, attractive to be successful in her honesty, humor, and fearlessness accent of the absurd that constitutes an unforgettable performance in addition to his acting. McCarthy made a strong influence in the fashion industry. Had abandoned those for ages who didn't meet the requirements for runway size. He introduced the 77 apparel line in 2015. Line designed especially for women who are plus-sized with a distinct philosophy that not everyone possesses to dress similarly. We ought to wear according to our emotions rather than a numerical value. This clothing brand wasn't merely a market gap, which provided assurance to millions of women who were previously omitted from fashionable collections in the world is becoming tired of artificial fillers. Melissa McCarthy has developed into a new type of emblem that represents love and honesty, the freedom to be unique. She does not represent perfection, but rather sometimes it's the opposite for a regular woman, worn out, occasionally incorrect, but always willing, must get up, laugh, continue. And maybe that's precisely the reason she's so liked. Melissa McCarthy. But she didn't become famed due to a skinny model's height, body, or a beauty designed to fit. She navigated the standards of Hollywood. Into the hearts of the audience with anything that this sector hardly ever adopts, laughter that comes from unvarnished honesty and the bravery to never act as though someone else than herself for more than 4 decades. She hasn't merely pretended to be composed, created, lead, and molded and completely fresh female archetype, an unapologetic screenflower, and did not bow whether Molly and Mike or Molly Alona Sola in The Bridesmaids or Megan in McCarthy The Little Mermaid. Never stays beyond merely giggling. Shelley's pride and compassion for those who has ever been undervalued in Hollywood, which cries out for a novel experience yet is afraid of the differences. Melissa McCarthy made the decision to stand with giggling while crying and with a breathless determination. As she on declared, "I didn't decide to be a symbol.